right, everybody. After that little interlude, now we're back with part 2 of the Cthulhu is Hard to Spell, Volume 3 Anthology interview. And we have with us, once again, Russell Noty and
Hi.
JD Oliva and Jessica Mason. Welcome, all three of you.
Thanks for having us on.
Thanks for still having me.
Yeah, I was told that Russ had to be here the whole time. It's a whole thing. But anyways, so in the first half, we talked about some of the stories. We got into kind of nitty gritty of some of the behind the scenes of the book itself. And in this part, for everyone out there, we're going to talk a little more about the Kickstarter. But we also have 2 new guests, so I want to get into their stories before we get too deep. So I guess let's start with JD. Can you give the pitch for your story in this anthology?
My story is, it's kind of like a boogeyman story. It's, I have this character from these prose books that I write. He's like basically like the Equalizer meets the X-Files, right? And I wanted to do something different with him than just write the prose books I've been writing. So my story is about this assassin character is in a diner and he meets a kid who shouldn't be there. And the kid says, I can't go back home because the boogeyman is there. So he takes him home and finds out that that is in fact accurate. The boogeyman is there, and it's these monsters in the closet. And just when he's about to unleash on them, he finds out the kid is actually one of them, and he falls through into a portal. And that's the whole story. But it's a lot. It was so much fun to write this. So that was my story for the book.
So you weren't here for the first part where I explained my ignorance of Lovecraftian horror. Is the boogeyman a Lovecraft thing?
No, it's not. It's actually it's not a Lovecraft character specifically, but I kind of reworked it because I've had this story kicking around in my head for years, but I just couldn't think of a way to make it work, right? And it's just kind of just one of those things you file away in the back of your head. And then I saw Russell had this open pitch for this thing, and the idea really came to me. I'm like, oh my gosh, this would work perfectly in Lovecraft, because I want to take my books. The next book in my series is actually going to go into a Lovecraft direction. So I kind of use this to springboard my brain into that realm more than anything. There's nothing like continuity wise to it, but it really kind of got me reading more Lovecraft because I've backed all these Kickstarters before, but I'm not really a huge Lovecraft fan. And I actually really got into it more getting ready to write this story than I'd ever had before. And I really fell in love is a harsh term, but I mean, like, I really got super into the idea of cosmic horror and what that's about. So this really kind of got me more interested in Lovecraft than I ever have before. And it was a lot of fun to do. And it's a fun world to play in. And I'm looking forward to doing it more often on my own.
So Russell, you weren't lying to me. People who aren't that into Lovecraftian stuff can still like your book.
It's true. It's very true. And the boogeyman is very Lovecraftian, if not like a Lovecraft character specifically.
Yeah, so excuse my Lovecraftian knowledge. I know Cartman rides him at the end of South Park, that episode, but that's where it ends for me, basically. Jessica, your story. Can I get the pitch for that one?
Yeah, my story is Forever Home, and I kind of blended two. I wanted to bring Mary Shelley kind of into the Lovecraft world, and like JD, I am going in a direction with these characters that are in my story. And basically you join in the anthology, you join the characters and they're coming upon like a cult of Hastur, and they're doing a monster fight club basically, and they're abusing these monsters and making them fight each other to the death. And a supernatural version of Mary Shelley and her sidekick Frank show up and put an end to all of that and kind of show them how real old, evil spirits use the Necronomicon to open a hellmouth. So it's a lot of fun. And I really wanted to bring another, like Mary Shelley, like this awesome sci-fi writer into this world and kind of face off with Lovecraft kind of a metaphorically way. So I was glad that Russell accepted it. So,
well,
yeah.
Jessica is like the OG fan of like the anthology series. Like I met her at a convention after I think after getting the monster books, her and her 2 like amazing like kids were at my table, and I was like, oh, this is like exactly who I'm making this book for. Like this mother and like her 2 like kids who like this kind of like creepy weird stuff that's like both like cute and scary at the same time. And it really, I mean, she like her liking the book and the family, like really, like that's who I wrote this, I do this whole series for.
So my kids are like the target audience. No, yeah, and they do love that kind of. And you know, I'll have to say, I was always liked Lovecraft and cosmic, horror growing up. But I never thought of it for kids. And I remember before I met Russell, my friend gave me this book called Is My Shaggath, and it's just this cute little terrifying story about this kid who goes through and he's looking for a shaggoth, and it kind of made me think of your story a little bit, JD, because you had a kid in it in the beginning, and he seems like he needs help, but it's not quite. I mean, he kind of needs help, but he's luring him in as well. Yeah, and then I met Russell, and yeah, I do have all the anthologies for sure. And I was in the last anthology as well, so it was fun. They're fun.
So this should be kind of interesting too, because my next question was, how was the submission process for you? What did you guys do for it? So I'm assuming, Jessica, you're going to have a much different story than JD. So maybe we'll do it the opposite. We'll start with Jessica this time.
Well, I saw that he did the open pitch, and I loved being in the second one. The second one, I did something a little more serious about border control, and I can't. The goat of my brain is. I'm sorry, guys. I'm going to apologize. Sunday's been a long one for me. But I saw the battle royale concept, and I just loved that, and I love the idea of them all different battles and a whole book full of different battles. And I'm like, you know what? I want to do this project with this new artist. I want to draw I want her to draw these characters. I want us to work together. I love doing Russell's book. And so I wrote a story that would fit that book. And she said yes, and he said yes. And it was awesome. So yeah, but yeah, it was a good process.
So I guess go ahead.
And Chris and Russell are great. They're very open and honest and straightforward. So that makes it real easy. As a creator, personally, I don't like when people tell you they like something or don't like it, and you can't get a straight answer, and they're great to work with.
Yeah. So I guess before I jump to JD, Russell, on your end for that the second time around, were you like, did you still need as much of a pitch from her, or were you like, I worked with Jessica, I know she can handle this, she's on top of the list?
I'll be honest, I was surprised to see it such a fun, playful story, because Jessica, I know all of Pestle and all just stuff Jessica's done, and like, I wouldn't call it like light and breezy reads. They're very like hard to emotionally control, get into, because it deals with a lot of heavy subjects. So like when she said she wanted to do something more like this, I was like, I loved the idea, and the artist is out of this world. Like the artist she found is just an out of this world like find of an artist. It's like the artist you look for and you work with like once in your like career, an artist like that, like uniquely like that, like unique, that unique a style. Like there's a billion, like not billion, but like there's so many amazingly talented artists. But like I looked at her and I was like, this is like not average. Like this is not like something you can easily put into like one camp. But I really judge the success of the book. I mean, monetarily you have to, because it costs money to make a book, but like on the creators who want to come back. Like I can't accept every creator who comes back, but like I really look to be like, okay, we did a good job. Like we did our job. If like the creators felt safe enough to do it and come back again. And so having Jessica come back and the other creators that are in this book come back, like they make me feel like I'm like doing a good job making the product and making the kind of environment that they can be proud of, because like I know they're not coming for the money. Like there just is not possible for them to be doing. They have to be doing it because they like the book. I'm hoping, at least.
Yeah, it's not for the money. It's not for the money.
I would be interesting. We don't have to talk about that here, but that'd be an interesting conversation in the back end, how you handle that. But JD, how was the submission for you? Like, what did you go through, and how was it handled?
So I got I haven't done comics in a while. I've been really focusing on prose, but when this came up, first of all, the battle royale thing really got me, because man, I love pro wrestling. It's like it's definitely a guilty pleasure of mine. So I I felt, I'm like, man, I got to go for this one. So
There's
I
definitely
better.
not a sting mask behind you or anything.
That's exactly what that is behind me. I had long hair last October, and I was Sting for Halloween. So I just keep it up there. So this one, I felt like, oh, Kismet, I got to do this. I've got an artist that I worked with on my last comics project a few years ago. I said, hey man, I got something. Do you want to jump in on this? And I sent him all Russell stuff. I said, this guy. He's the man when it comes to comics, Kickstarter stuff. Like, I want to be involved. Do you want to jump in on this with me? And he saw it and he's like, absolutely. So we put our pitch together and I submitted it, and it was super easy to work with. Like, I agree with what Jessica said. Like, as editors, when there's problems, like, hey, fix this. It's like, no problem, man. And I appreciate that. I don't like people beating around the bush and, maybe, no, just like, hey, do this. I'm like, cool. I love straightforward direction, and I appreciate that. And it makes the process so easy, and especially on their end when they're juggling so many projects and trying to keep everything in line. Like, I don't envy them at all. Like, this seems like a massive undertaking, but it's been fun to watch. I look at this as kind of going to like grad school almost for running a Kickstarter, because Russell has done such an excellent job. It's like, okay, I want to sit back and watch and learn, which has been for me the most important thing. Is I want to get better at doing these things on my own. So why not watch someone who's done such a great job with it over the years and knows the material back, or knows the process, I should say, backwards and forwards. So that's the inspiration for me of why I wanted to be a part of it, and working with them is I learned a lot on my own, just watching the process go along, and it's been a blast to be a part of.
That's something you said there just clicked with me, the back and forth between you and Russ, because that's such a hard place to be. I've been on Russ's side of that in professional life, where I'm very straightforward with people, and sometimes that comes off as you being an asshole. And it's really hard to like get that back and forth correctly. So it's really cool to see that he's done a good job with it.
I like I said, I prefer that. Like, I would rather have someone say yes, no, and then you can just go, right? Like, I hate when people kind of dangle things and like, try to say something without really saying something, because they're afraid isn't the right word, but they're like, they don't want to like hurt feelings. And it's like, I can't, I'm a meathead. You can't hurt my feelings. So I just want to learn and get better. And I just want to, make the project right. Cause this isn't about me. This is about serving the greater good of a project that has a brand name, to be honest. And that, Russell staked his creative reputation on. So it's like, I'm playing in this sandbox. So I gotta follow the rules. And that's been important to me, is like making sure you're, I'm an athlete, I'm a coach, everyone plays a role on a team. So this was one of those times, sometimes you're the captain and sometimes you're a water boy, and you gotta know your role on every job. So this is, it's important. It's important to have a leader who's decisive and who isn't afraid to lead, because too many people are afraid to be leaders. And one thing I really respect about Russell is he isn't. He gets out there and he steers the ship. And this is why this stuff works, man. This is why you get these great anthologies and why he nails these major Kickstarters all the time. Like, it's awesome to watch.
Yeah. Don't tell me what I want to hear. Tell me what I need to hear.
Exactly.
Well, I do think that there is a way that I've gotten much better, I think, over the years, especially working with Chris about delivering news that needs to be changed better. Because I think that there's a way to couch a thing. There's a way to couch it badly, because I think the thing that most editors, or lots of editors, especially young editors, do is like they put off telling you bad news. And creators also put off telling you bad news about like they're going to be late or like there's a problem with their thing. But then oftentimes you'll have like the other side of this where people are like, fix this, don't fix this. Like, it's very dry, and it's not like, we love your story, these are the changes that we have for it. So I think you do need, if you love the story, sometimes you don't love the story, and like that's a whole nother conversation. But like, I don't know. I'm hoping JD doesn't mind me telling this story, but like there was a problem with his story. Like, he shot a kid. He shot the kid in the thing, and I was like, you can't. So this is an all ages book, man. Like, you have to change this scene like drastically, because like you can't shoot a kid with blood like in this book, even if it's a monster kid. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, it just was not going to be able to happen. And, people can take that very poorly, and people have taken it very poorly in the past. And sometimes they just won't get the pages done, and like there won't be a story in the book, or like sometimes like it will strain a friendship or something like that. But like JD, and I don't know if I'm getting better at this, or like it's just like the people, I've gotten better at bringing in people who won't get offended if you have to make a change. But the people in this book were very like open to doing all of the changes that needed to be done, and I would say 90 to 95% of the changes were like, this is a kid's book, you can't curse. This is a kid's book, you can't blood. This is a kid's book, you can't kill a kid. Like, this is a kid's book, like, and I think like, this is always the hardest book for me to edit, because I generally do not do all ages content. And so people see I'm editing a book, and they're like, they often forget that, like, you can't do that. We had Timothy's story last, like, there's just got like a naked alien in it. And I was like, you can't have that as a kid's book. Like, it's an all ages book. I'm not saying it's not for like babies, but like, it has to be appropriate to show to everyone. So like, you can't do that. And there's always like 5 or 6 stories that you have to do that with either way. But like,
Guilty.
I think people are surprised that like I because of my reputation in comics, like, I have to be even more careful on this particular book than I would. So like, I am way stricter than probably a kid's book editor would be, because like, I like can't get away. Like, because my general proclivity and tendency is to not worry about those things.
Yep.
No, like I said, I appreciated it greatly. That like I said, because you put it up, like, yeah, that's a good point. Like, I got that email and went, yeah, that makes sense. So it was an easy fix. I went to my artist, like, okay, it's got to change a couple panels. Shouldn't be a problem. And again, it's like when you're playing in someone else's sandbox, you got to follow the rules. And that's part of the challenge. And that's part of what's fun, is that, when you're doing your own thing, you do whatever you want. But as soon as you start working with other people, it's like, okay, let's make this work. It's like, I have a 6-year-old, right? And I got to tell him, hey, you can't just get your way all the time. You've got to play with the other kids, and you've got to, make sure everybody's having a good time. And sometimes that means, swallowing some pride. And, this wasn't even swallowing pride for me. This was just like, sure, no problem. Whatever you want, man. But like, I can see people not being as cooperative about things like that, but I didn't want to be that guy.
Yeah. That sports team atmosphere that you have just brimming off of you, JD.
I try not to, and I can't help it. It's just the way I'm programmed. Like,
listen, I grew up playing football, grew up playing baseball. I get it. I'm just saying that it brims off you because I've always said that's so important for a lot of people, because it does give you the idea of like, once again, I can be very matter of fact. So sorry for this, but you're not important. The team is important.
Exactly.
So you just have to be a cog in that machine to make it go.
I coach I'm a high school wrestling coach, so I practice what I preach. Like, work for the team. This was a team atmosphere, which is really fun, to be honest with you, being part of a team. This especially, you see this anthology. There's so many big time players involved in this, right? And like, maybe I'm the 6th man off the bench in this one, and that's perfectly fine. And I'm totally good playing that role. So this is what you do to get involved in these big major things. And I said I loved every minute of it. It was great, and I appreciate it.
I knew I could sense wrestling. My brother was a wrestler. I was like, there's a wrestler on this podcast.
Yeah, that's me. Yeah.
Well, it's similar thing. Like, this is really how you get in good with an editor, is like to do changes very quickly and efficiently. We had some lettering issues, I think, with Jessica's last story in the second thing, and like, you never know how it's going to go, because like, these were not like you have to change one word here. These were like, you structurally have to like change the lettering to make it fit with this story. And like, that can be an ego bursting moment when you send in a story and you're like, I just did everything right, it's gonna be perfect. Like, and you're like, no, actually you have to go and re-letter this whole story in X, Y, and Z, and you only have like 2 weeks to do it in. And so how I really tell when someone is like, when I start to be like, okay, this person's like part of the team. Like, they're like in the inner club, is like, if I have to give you a bad note, and like, you do go do that note, and then you come back and you're like, oh yeah, this is exactly what I wanted. Thank you for taking the correction that I needed in the spirit of how I wanted, how I meant the correction, and then killing it when the pages come back.
I think after doing that with you, and then I was in another anthology, I was attempting to be my own letterer because I thought I could learn it. I was like, I can be a letterer. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be the other thing I'm good at. And after the notes from Russell, I felt good. I fixed it. I was like, look, I did it. I'm proud of myself. And then the next time I did an anthology, I tried it again. And I was like, this is it. I'm hiring her. I'm done. Now I wanted to be a letterer. I was like, I can do it. I want to learn the craft. And then I realized I didn't want to be a letterer. I was wrong. So then now I hire someone to do it. Yeah. So
I'm sorry to laugh, but I went through the same thing where I'm like, I could do that. That's easy. It's just typing in words. And then you do it and you look at it and you're like, that looks like shit. Those people are actually talented.
Yeah. Well, and I'm glad I learned all the rules and figured it all out on my own, because that helps me when I'm editing comics for myself and for my company. But yeah, it's time consuming, and to do it right is an art. And I don't know if I have that much of my life to learn that art, so.
Letters are the unsung hero of the comics world. When they do a good job, nobody cares. When they do a bad job, we're all like, wow, that looks bad.
Yeah. And this is not, so I'll tell my own bad lettering story to like we had to re-letter the entirety of my last book, like in the last month. Like we had to bring in a brand new letterer because I brought in a letterer and was like, here, look what we did with the lettering. And I was expecting like a little bit of changes. And he's like, this is a no, I need to just redo this whole thing. And I was like, so like, it's not just it's like everyone. I've been doing this for a long time. And like, I'm literally telling other people to like fix their lettering. And me, I'm like, yeah, no, this is fine. And it was not fine. So like, it is, and it like there's nothing that ruins a book quicker than bad lettering. Like you open it up. In fact, I see the lettering before I even see the art, because they're big white bubbles of thing. Like it's the first thing that you see on a page. Like just visually, your mind goes to, there's a bunch of blank space here, and then there's art behind it. And so it really like ruins the first impression of a book if it's not right. And like I've often had conversations with other editors saying we should and they hire, like Travis hires Jerome to just like letter the whole book. But I keep coming back to like, there are letterers who have there are artists who have such a baked in style to their art that I would love that. It's hard for me to be like, yeah, go letter a story like Angela letters hers. It's like, it's so different and unique. And like, she breaks like every lettering rule that should work, but like that shouldn't work, and it all works for her. So there are people like that I make it hard. And it's very hard as a creator to give colored pages and then wait for like a year to get the lettered pages back after the Kickstarter campaign. Like I just want to have it. I want to have the whole thing done. So all of those things, I keep going back to like having each person letter their own. And then I feel kind of guilty about it, but then I see the pages come back and I'm like, no, this was the right decision, because like I have a kind of stable of letterers that most of the creators use, and so it looks pretty consistent, but I think that it's hard to fit into some styles, like what would be considered like a traditional lettering template.
Yeah.
So this is a little off kilter, but something you said just made me think of this. Do you ever have like, you say you have a stable of letters. Do you also have a stable of artists that sometimes you pair with people?
Sometimes I do. I usually do not, because I have a million writers and like 10 artists who want to be paired with them. So it's very hard for me to be like, hey, artist, here's 10 people who want to work with you. Like here, but I do it sometimes. So Holly Interlandi did a story called Pikmin's Revenge, and I've wanted to work with Holly forever. Like there's a comic shop in there used to be a comic shop in Los Angeles called Meltdown, and she was the manager of Meltdown. And so like she was like a god to me as far as comics go. Like when I first was doing comics, like she was managing like one of the biggest comic stores in Los Angeles. And so like she wanted to be in it, but she like couldn't find an artist. And so I knew Nick Torres wanted to be in the book, and I paired them together. But generally, I don't think it's very hard for me to pick like a writer artist pairing that is good. And then to be like, hey, artist, here's 10 writers. You want to pick one? And be like, oh, cool. So now I'm going to do work. on top of the work to find the right artist. But if I know for sure like that the style, and I saw her pitch and I was like, that's like, I know the style you want, and like this is definitely like a Nick Torres style, like it would work. Generally, I don't though.
Okay, so let's kind of transition over. The book is at Kickstarter right now, trying to get funded. You're pretty much, I think you're almost there, right?
You're about $4,000 away, which is still almost double what the average Kickstarter makes in a campaign. So like, I'm like, yes, we're close for our campaign, but still, like, it feels like we're 2 regular campaigns away from funding, and we're hoping that we do that, in the next couple weeks, and then we have some time to buffer on top of that.
Yeah, it's funny because everyone out there, I'm sure you've done a Kickstarter if you've listened to the show, but there's a little bar and it's like, it's so close, but then you look at it, it's like, it's 4,000 away. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
But it's so close. So how has the Kickstarter gone so far? You're 2 weeks in, I believe, or 1 week in?
It's gone long. It's so long. Jessica can tell you the last one was 24 days. It would be ending next week on Thursday. And instead we have like a month left. It's very long. It's gone so long. It's so long. But I think it's going great. We had our best first week ever that we've done. So we did like 20 grand the first week, which is incredible. Then we had the worst second and third weeks we've ever had, which are kind of brought us back down to earth. We had a big troll who did a $10,000 pledge and then it dropped. And so our kick track looks really weird this week. We had a negative day yesterday. So like, this is the grind. We've kind of not had a grind yet. We've been making like $400 or $500 a day, which is like pretty good for a campaign, any campaign. And we've kind of hit like this week has been, this is why I normally do a campaign of 24 days because it's perfect. You're like, hit this lull in a campaign and you're like, it's over. But what happened was between volume 1 and volume 2, we lost $8,000. And I thought that if we lost any money, so we went from $39,000 to $31,000 and we needed $30,000 to just make the book. And I was like, if we're going to lose literally any money from that amount, I need to increase the length of the campaign to try and do more marketing across the campaign to like solve that equation of like, how do we get to the $30,000 if we have way less people than the previous time? Which we probably will. Like, we're on pace to probably have about 650 to 700 backers, and we had 750 last time and 1,000 the first time. So this is the way that campaigns generally go. Generally, by the third book, you have far less backers, but because there's 3 books, people are pledging for roughly the same amount of money that you make each time. We've had. I mean, it's been wonderful. Like, we have a theme song this time. I love our theme song. Like, the creators have been amazing. The fans have been amazing. It's so gratifying to fulfill the vision. Like, this was the vision was book 1, preparing to invade. Book 2, invade. Book 3, the gods are working to push back. But I'd be lying if I said it wasn't brutal. I've done this 20 times before, and it is brutal every single time in new and interesting ways. This time, I thought we solved the beginning of the campaign problem, which we had last time, and like killed at the beginning of the campaign. And now we have a middle of the campaign problem, which is just, it's fun. It's a fun experience.
Are you telling me that doing a Kickstarter isn't easy? I mean...
Well, people often think that like I snap a finger because I like literally wrote the book on Kickstarter for books, and like I do a bunch of Kickstarters and like I raise a lot of money. And they often do think that I just snap my finger. They'll also say, you raised $25,000. What are you complaining about? And like both of them are valid critiques, I suppose. But like I say all of those things so you know that like even at the, I'm quoting for people that are listening, level that I'm playing at, which may be higher or lower than the level you play at, there's still a lot of issues. Like even Brian Polito has a lot of issues during his campaign, even though he raises $300,000 each time, And especially when you make projections that influence like what books you can do based upon how your Kickstarters have traditionally done. If you don't hit those numbers, suddenly you have to like put people out of work or like scramble some other ways. And so it's always a fun challenge. I've never not had a fun challenge when I went to Kickstarter, no matter when I did it, for what reason.
The you raised X criticism, I always push back on, because I know so many creators, and maybe this is the case for you. You could say or not say whatever you want, but usually that minimum they're put up there. So in this case, the 30,000 is to make sure everybody gets paid back, make the book, get it shipped out, do everything, and then you're lucky if there's anything left over.
Yeah, I'll tell people I make on a good campaign, I'll make $2,000, like for all, no matter what it makes. Like that's what was left over. The most I ever made was on the first Cthulhu campaign, where I made $7,000 when it was all said and done. Like that was the most I've ever made still to this day on like one Kickstarter campaign. This book is going to cost $35,000 to put together, because I kept on Jessica's wonderful advice, I kept the price at $40 instead of raising the price, even though the entire supply chain has been decimated. So it's going to cost, I put the minimum amount that I was willing to come out of pocket, the maximum amount I was willing to come out of pocket. But like to get this book over the finish line with everything that we're doing, we did the song and the pins and the book itself. It's going to cost like $35. And yeah, like it's literally that doesn't even go to overhead or warehousing. Like that's just like the book comes in, the book goes out. Pricing a book has gone up. It's been like 5 or 6 rate increases on the USPS since the time of the first campaign. So like there's just a lot. And I hired an editor from the first one. So like it's just there's a lot of costs, and I happily pay those costs to improve the price of the book. You talked about the back end. In every previous book that I've done, in anthology wise, I paid a percentage of the gross that we made. This time I'm paying a page rate, which quadruples like the cost to me at the end of a campaign. I'm happy to pay that cost, but those are the reasons why you make those calculations based on previous campaigns. And if you're like, oh, this campaign just raised $10,000 less, like that is like, well, my costs were $10,000 more. I made 7. So with the second book, it was $8,000 less that we made. It cost me like $7,000 more to make that book. So like we were like I was in a bit of a pickle at the end of the last one. It was the first month of the pandemic, so I didn't mind that. Like, it was like the least of my worries how I would like continue like surviving as a creator in the middle of the pandemic. But yeah, I mean, each one has like it's different. And if you have a $500, on the other side, if you have a $500 campaign, like it's a whole different set of problems that you're dealing with, because like you have to do POD and you have to do all of these other things. And like, but I promise you, if you had a $2,500 campaign and the next campaign you came back on and it was $400, like it would cause a big problem for you. Like somehow you'd have to fill some amount of money that you were not expecting to fill. And I'm sure you would do it because like, you guys, you're all wonderful, but like it would cause that problem. Now imagine you had a book that was 10 times more than that or 100 times more than that, and it had like 100 times bigger problem. Like it's one of those economies of scale where I've tried to keep my scale very, very low. So when something like the pandemic happens, I just turtle up and I'm like, I'm just going to make some books. I'm going to wait it out. And like, we're not going to like blow and I don't have a warehouse space or anything like that to like go on there. So yes, that's my long way of saying everything you said was 100% accurate.
I like when people tell me I'm accurate. That's nice. You mentioned something in there real quick. I want to get to JD and Jessica after this, but just something you mentioned there. How has the supply chain affected you? Is it just costs going up, or are you having trouble getting actual books into your hands?
I have
or is it something else I'm not thinking of?
So I have not done the problem with me currently with this book and Ichabod is that they're hardcover books, and like I'm trying to bring all of my production back into the USA as much as I can. But like you can't print hardcover books in America and like survive. You just can't do it. Like the costs are just so high. You have to outsource it. And I've been told that not only is it going to cost more, but it's going to take 3 times longer to get here than it normally does. So like I usually would put like July or August and I put like December, and I'm like, are we gonna get December? Like, is the books even gonna be here in December? So like that is the biggest thing is not the money. The biggest thing is the supply chain, and so the time. And so I'm actually on top of all the other costs I am printing all of the Ichabod Volume 4s with this book, because then at least if they both get here in November, like I can fulfill both campaigns at the same time, and I don't have to wait till like the fall, like June of 2022 to fulfill it. Like if I'm hoping that will help, like get people to still back 4, even though there's almost no way that the Cthulhu book is going to be here by that time, because they'll both at that point be on a boat together.
And that's specifically a hardcover issue.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, paperbacks are a little more expensive in America, or they're more expensive in America than overseas. But like with the shipping and everything, like it pretty much washes out, and like you can take a little bit. I mean, most people that I know print their paperbacks in America. They print them in Texas or there's like 3 or 4 facilities. But like with and I print my paperbacks in America. But I do not print my hardcovers. The reason is because it costs like 68 cents in China to upcharge from paperback to hardcover, and it costs $5 in America to upcharge from paperback to hardcover. And that cost can double the cost of a book, or more than double the cost of a book sometimes.
So on Jessica and JD, on your end, I guess how much, other than doing stuff like this, or maybe written interviews or something, how much have you been involved in the Kickstarter, and what have you taken from this whole experience? Let's start with JD on this one.
This is the first interview that I've done for this on my own. I've just been sharing with my Twitter and my Facebook. I've been doing it with my email list, just kind of pushing as much as I can. I have a much smaller audience than probably anybody involved. That's just fine. I'm doing what I can. Otherwise, I'm just kind of, like I said, I'm watching and learning because I want to get better at this. And, this was an opportunity to yammer. So I decided to come on and talk because that's easy. And I'm just learning and watching and trying to do the best I can to pick up a little bit of the slack.
So when you're watching, how much do you get interaction with Russell on this? Or are you just looking in the background going like, just observing from upper ground?
The last thing they need is me bothering them asking questions when they're trying to run this thing. So I'm just sitting back, watching, reading. When something comes up, I try to offer my good 2 cents, I suppose. And just like I said, I'm trying not to get in the way and get run over. Basically, that's my goal at this point. Just trying to help out and do what I can, pick up the slack when it's necessary.
How about you, Jessica?
Well, as far as both the Kickstarter campaigns for the Cthulhu books, I send out to my newsletter, which I have been building slowly over the last 5 years, and so I've sent out probably 2 emails that involve this, but I'd also sent one out beforehand to get people to follow it. I don't do as much posts on my social just because I don't have huge social media following. I'm working on it, but I do post on there and I talk about it. I mean, I'm also a science fiction writer. And so when I do events or talk to people, I bring up the comic work I do and mention the anthologies. As far as I've learned a lot about Kickstarter from Russell. I also just, got his last book about Kickstarter. You would want to say the title, Russell, because I'm going to not do it right. How to
get your book selling on Kickstarter?
Yes. And I joined the Sprint group, which he changed the name of, but I learned a lot in that group just watching, and I did prepare my first campaign. I did not actually share it with the group because I decided not to do it yet. And that's not because I wasn't confident in what I had learned and how to do it. It was just that I wanted a slightly bigger audience before I did that. I was very concerned about launching on Kickstarter. I think I want to finish my trilogy first. So once I have the trilogy done, I'll do it. But I've learned a lot from just listening to or reading Russell's posts, and, you know, being in that group was actually very interesting. Just having the whole group dynamic. You learned a lot quickly. So, yeah.
So real quick for you, for anyone out there listening that's in the stage before where you are, which is, you know, kind of, I got this idea, I want to make it, but nobody's going to buy it. And they say to build a mailing list, but how do you even do that? What were you doing before you actually had a Kickstarter or something with your name on it to build any of that stuff, whether it's mail list or just notoriety in general?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Make sure. Yeah. Well, I have to be honest. My first, I came from like film and screenwriting, and so I didn't do a ton of that. And so when I started in comics, I kind of I went to all these conventions. I talked to people. I had an idea that I wanted to do as a comic. It was really dark. It's about sex trafficking, and it's a supernatural superhero pistol, and she kind of gets her vengeance on all that. And that was before Me Too came out, and I just felt like people weren't talking about that enough. And then suddenly everyone was talking about it all the time when my comic came out, so that was a little weird.
That's how that works.
But I was glad. It was good. And then Pistol was probably the darkest thing I ever wrote. And so what I realized is I was introducing myself to this whole new genre and world and medium as a very dark writer, which I'm not always that dark. I am. I mean, Plastic Girl series is also dark. So I guess I'm a little dark. But so I just started, what I realized is I had to figure out how to get the email list going, you know, really. At first I didn't think so, but then, you know, just from talking to Russell and talking to a bunch of other people, you know, I started trying to do it at shows, and then everything shut down. I was just getting started going to shows. So it was like, I was still figuring out my style and what I was going to do at each booth. And then COVID happened, and my first show back is going to be LA Festival of the Books in April. I'm going to go with Russell and another author. And yeah, so I just started I did a few viral builders, and I just then kept trying to get people to sign up, you know, on my website and everything. It's a grind. The email list is a grind. And just learning how to curate, like take people off of it and, you know, really work it right. And I feel like that's another job that I wish I had someone to do for me. But I hope that answered your question.
I feel like everything, and whether it's your side of this or my side of this, there's all these little things that are their own job.
Yeah.
That we're like, oh, that'll be easy. Because we have a mailing list too. And I'm like, okay, just put the mailing list. The listeners will come in. Start a Twitter account. The listeners will come in. And then you look at my Twitter and you're like, who's this dude? He's got nothing on Twitter. But so Russ, with the Kickstarter, you've got, I always go right down to the bottom to see what the cool stuff is. I see you've got some really nice pins. I love the championship belt pin that you're doing. What other kind of cool stuff are you doing?
Really wanted to do that championship belt as a belt buckle. I really, really wanted that to work out, but it just didn't work out. I mean, the coolest thing is the book. Obviously, we don't do that much merch. Merch usually has a pretty low profit margin on it. But we are doing pins. Like the pin is really the thing that we're doing, and the theme song. So we've never done a theme song before. I had Tim do it and his partner Sterling do a theme song for like this. It's like Monster Mash meets Werewolf Bar Mitzvah, but with Cthulhu. And so I really love that. And I really love the pin that Aaron Alexovich put together. And like those are the two big things. I mean, and then books. Like we have books, and then you can buy more books, and then even more books. And like if you want some more books, you can get more books. That's kind of like the way all of our campaigns work. I mean, I kind of envy people who like do socks and shirts and sweatshirts and all of that stuff, cups and things. But like we have some of that on our merch store on wannabepress.com. But the campaigns really like to make the book, and I want to make sure when I'm making the book, like all of the money that we're making is going into that book, and that's really what's happening in this campaign. Like it's the biggest one we've ever done, but like all of the money up until like $35,000 like is going into the book, and even then after that it's going to pay me for like making a book, like the little bit that is gonna like I'll maybe be able to like go and like get some froyo or something afterwards. That'd be nice to do. So yeah, we don't do all of that stuff. I do just want to say that I don't expect anything from these creators as far as marketing goes. Like everything they do is great, but I do put out a marketing plan for them if they want to use it before the campaign. And I think that more editors should do that, because all of the creators that I've ever talked to in this campaign were more than willing to do stuff. Like we've talked to 100, like we've worked with, 200 or so creators over the campaign, and they were all game to like do a little bit of promotion. But like you had to tell them they're not going to go out. Some of them did, but very few of them went out and were like, hey, look what I did. I booked this interview. Don Wen was one of them who was like, I booked these 3 interviews on my own. Like, do you want to be on them? And I was like, yeah, thank you. But like usually like they will do more than I expect them to do by a wide margin. But you have to tell them, and you have to keep them updated, and you have to give them like direction, or they're just going to be like share it on social media one time, and then that's what they do. So we try to send emails once a week with where we're standing, with what they can do. I do a post. We have a Facebook group. If you don't have it, if you're doing an anthology, probably the best thing you can do is have a Facebook group where you can share stuff and have everyone meet together. Because like that's the point. The point is that these creators meet each other, they like each other, and then they like the book, and then they want to promote, and they want the book to be more successful. So like for everyone, it's a better scenario if like you introduce the creators to each other and you let them like build a relationship that exists outside of your book, but is made stronger by your book. So yes, I just want to make that thing out. So like there was a couple tidbits of like they do way more than I expect them to do, and I appreciate that. But I think part of that is because like I do tell them exactly what the most effective thing they can do with their time is.
You got me deep with the werewolf bar mitzvah reference. Yeah, so as we're going down it's pins and books. So if you've never read the Cthulhu, I keep getting you mixed up with Travis's book. It's hard to spell. You can get them all right here. But way at the bottom, I always get that one way at the bottom. There is one where if somebody wants to build a rabid fan base, they can get your crash course on Kickstarter.
So there's one that has, I think it's $500, which is all of the courses and the digital. So they get, I have a course called Build a Rabid Fan Base, which I think maybe Jessica took, or like a bunch of people have taken it, which is like basically how to find your perfect audience and make something that they're going to love, and then basically do it on repeat forever. Like build a promotion machine that works forever. And it's been very effective, I think. Like lots of people have gone through it. You also get in that you get my Kickstarter anthology course, which is literally how to build a comic anthology and run a Kickstarter for it. So like my courses generally tend to be a bit broader than that, but like this is the literal thing that I'm doing. It's like, how do you build an anthology that will bring together a bunch of cool people and then make money on it, and then use that to springboard your career forward to the next level, which is, again, the literal thing that I used my anthology for, Monsters and Other Scary Shit, and then Cthulhu is hard to spell. So, like, if you're like, I wonder how we did this, like, I literally do the step-by-step. You get that at the $400 or $500 level. And then my Crush It on Kickstarter course is my intro course, which is, like, basically everything you need to know to like build the campaign, but it's not specific to anthologies. And then like there's $1,000 level, which is all of the things I just mentioned, every one of my books, plus like a grab bag, which is literally anything that I have in stock. I'm just going to send you. I don't know how much that is. I don't know what books I have in stock outside of the main ones, because they kind of come and go. But like whatever I have, I'm going to pack it all up and I'm going to send that to you too.
Awesome. So
Nope.
that's all there on the Kickstarter.
Yeah, and people have never taken me up on the $500 or $400 level. On sorry, at the $500 level, no one's taking me up on it, which I think is a shame because like people ask me about anthologies, about like building an audience all the time, and so it's like I'm going to put together my literally best package ever, which is all of my courses basically for like $500. It's a lot of money, but like it is a lot of courses as well.
So unfortunately, we're short on time. So I want to get everybody out the time I promised. So let's just end it this way, starting with JD. Where can people find you online, and where's the best place to send them for your other work outside of this?
Best place to find me online is probably on Twitter. It's my favorite form of social media. JD_Oliva, Oliva. For my work, Amazon. Best place to find me. I'm my novelist. I got a 7-book supernatural thriller series, books Jericho on there. It features starring the character from my short story from this anthology. So yeah, Amazon and Twitter. It's JD Oliva, Oliva.
And how about you, Jessica?
The best place to find me is wickedtreepress.com. I'm also on Instagram. That's Dandelion451. And then my books are on not FaceTime. My books are on Amazon and anywhere you can find them. Plastic Girl. It's the Plastic Girl series.
And Russell, remind everybody about where they can find you and this anthology.
Sure. Well, you can find me at russellnolte.com, the anthology at CthulhuIsHardToSpell.com. And really, honestly, I just want to say the last one time, first of all, thank you so much for doing this. This is a long show, and I really appreciate it. But I do this anthology to introduce people to new creators. And so really, like, I wholeheartedly like endorse all of the creators, aside from Tara, who is a very new creator. I've read all of these people's work who've been on here, and like they're great. I love what they do, so I hope you do go and check them out.
Yeah, and real quick before I sign off, I always say this when DC and Marvel do it, and I mean it when Kickstarters do it and when whoever does it. But anthologies are great because they're, I hate to use the term no name, but no name creators who you aren't your favorite creator, but could be your favorite creator tomorrow on those books. So that's why I love anthologies. So everybody, go check the book out. All three of you, thank you so much for being on. I really appreciate it. And to everybody out there, remember all the links for the Kickstarter in the show notes. So click there, go pledge, check the book out, and let's help get this thing funded. Thank you all so much. I'll see you all here next week.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us. Yeah.